What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Aloha, y'all. Daniel Aaron. I am your host for this, the Vibrant Living Show, the Art of Vibrant Living Show, and I'm so excited for today's show. Thank you for being here. Welcome. You know, one of the best things for me about having this show is between you and me, I get to talk to amazing people and draw from them gold, wisdom. And this person on today's show, Dr. Judith Kravitz, is an amazing woman, been a teacher, mentor for me for, holy moly, maybe like 30 years. I can't believe it. I'm so excited that she's here. Tell you more about her in a moment. But first, the Art of Vibrant Living. What the heck is that? It is your birthright, your destiny, maybe I would say your obligation, your duty, because if you can live, if you can make your life a masterpiece, you doing that, not only does it make your life better, it makes the world a better place. And it is absolutely 100% within your reach, within your grasp. We have the technology. If you are not living that yet, please, or to the extent that you would like to, because there's always more, please reach out. Send me an email, daniel@danielaaron.com. I would love to support you and assist you with that. This show is all about empowering you with that. Entertaining, yes, empowering you to, and here's the thing, please make a commitment right now. Would you make a commitment that you don't just get entertained, that you also take at least one of the gold nuggets that Judith brings forward today and say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to apply that in my life, right? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. It's not just information. It's when you apply it in your life and create that upward trajectory. So hopefully you said yes, right, to that commitment. Now, Judith Kravitz is really one of the most knowledgeable and experienced people about breath and what some people call breath work, or specifically transformational breath, the modality that she co-founded and has been training people in now for a long time. Literally has assisted hundreds of thousands of people improve the quality of their breath and therefore the quality of their lives, has literally trained thousands of trainers all around the world. She's the founder of the Transformational Breath Foundation. And for me personally, was my very first teacher in breath in 1996 when I had a huge awakening and then saw the power of the breath. And, you know, the last thing I'll say about Judith, because I could go on and on, I want you to meet her directly though, is when I was new on the spiritual path, she was the first person I met that really personified unconditional love. And that to me was an astounding thing. And it still is an astounding thing. Her knowledge and experience is great, but the immensity of her heart and that love is even, to me, more impressive. So super grateful to have you here today with us. Judith, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Daniel. What a beautiful introduction. I hope I can live up to it, but it's so nice to be here with you. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's really an honor for you to be here. And, you know, I introduced you a little bit, but the words fail to convey, you know, who you are and your experience with breath. And, you know, I've been working with breath for a long time now, not as long as you. And, you know, and I rave, and a lot of people in our audience would know, because I rave on about the importance and the power of the breath. But would you just take us back a little bit? Like, how did you get into this? How did you get started? What's brought you to this point?
Yeah. Well, it was a long time ago. It was about the mid 70s, and I was living in Northern California. And it was a time, there was actually when the country was going through what I would call the beginning of a spiritual revolution. Things were just immersing from, I think, the drug period, and then people were having higher awareness. And then new things were coming to us from the East, in particular, the breath work. So I had a chance. At that time, I was working as a metaphysical minister and a spiritual healer, mostly through prayer, working with prayer, and I would say some form of meditation, and also some breath work. And then I got a lot of inner guidance as to how to develop the breath work more and bring it more into the work I was already doing with people. So the breath work I do is spiritually based, but we also work on every level, the physical, the mental, emotional, and the preciousness of the spiritual. Soon after that, maybe 5 years after that, I found out, inadvertently found out, that I had a tumor in my throat. And it was a very strange crux in my life, because at that time, alternative healing was not the way to go. Like, it was very new in the late 70s and 80s. And yet that was my foundation. That was my path. And so I had to make a choice. And at that time I had two small children, and, I had to really look at what was the right thing for me to do. So I prayed, and the answer was clear. You have to walk your talk. You have to follow your path. And so that time, the breath was the most powerful tool, along with prayer, along with focused consciousness, and began breathing every day and getting guidance and feeling energy moving, especially in my throat area, awarenesses of how I had shut down my truth, my communication, my feelings. And within about, I'd say, 3 months, I was putting lotion on my body one day, and the tumor was gone. And I really knew in that moment, Daniel, that I had gotten a miracle. And without thinking about anything, there was something inside of me that says, I want to share this with the world. And I knew that it was the breath, because it was the main tool I was using to get to those levels, to bring about the healing and the awarenesses I needed to move forward. So that was the beginning. And I want to tell everybody, careful what you wish for, because I got my wish. And primarily, that's been the focus of my life for almost 50 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said that in kind of a casual way, like, okay, it's time for me to walk my talk. But part of what I'm hearing, what I'm imagining, is at that point, here you are, a mother with two young children. A tumor is, from everything we've heard from Western medical, like, that's serious business, right? That's as serious as it gets, and that's got to be super scary, life-threatening. And somehow you had the courage, conviction, and faith to say, time to walk my talk. How, can you say any more about what that experience was like? How did you have that courage?
Well, it was scary. I think if my family wasn't so important, it wouldn't have been even a choice. I would just do it. But I felt like I had this responsibility to do. And at that time, allopathic medicine was really the only choice. Like, there wasn't a lot of alternatives in at that time. And look at how many we have now. That's what's so amazing. But so I just had faith that if I was going to continue to share the breath and use the breath as a tool, then I needed to know its power, and I needed to have ultimate faith in it. And not about curing anything, but about the ability to really bring balance into our life. And so I could see, it gave me the ability to see where I was out of balance and create that balance in my system, in my consciousness, to receive the healing. So I want you to know that we're not advertising, let's cure your tumors, but to bring, let's say, more wholeness into our being.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. And, I remember when I first did the training with you back in 1996, I was
Yeah.
new to all this stuff. And, and I remember hearing from you and some of our required reading, what to me was a radical concept at the time, which is the body, mind, spirit system is a self-healing organism, right? That if it has the proper conditions, and one of them being primarily breath, energy, spirit, oxygen, however we want to talk about that, that it will actually heal itself. And that was so different from my upbringing. Yet when I encountered that information, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So can you say anything? Like, I love playing angel's advocate, and I can imagine some people will hear what you were just speaking about and be like, wait a minute, that couldn't happen. How could that happen? And breathing, what about the pharmaceuticals and chemotherapy, so how does it work? Like, what was your experience and what can you say about that?
Sure. It goes into my background in metaphysics, and that's what my doctorate's in. And metaphysics is, let's just say, beyond the physical. It's the science of energy beyond the physical realm. And we take that to the understanding that at some level we are all perfection, and that the breath, I found, is one of a key tool to bring us to that, let's say, state of pure light, pure energy, our essence of who we are as spiritual beings. And so having that, let's say, awareness going into this and trusting that was a key element to understand how real healing takes place, and not on the physical, but the healing takes place in the mind that creates, let's say, the guilt and fears that creates the physical symptoms. But you can transcend that and go into higher consciousness and align with the spiritual perfection that already exists. That's who we've always been, who we will always be, and tune into and acknowledge that and energetically reach that state. And many, many people go there in the breath work. That's what's so beautiful, because we have that spiritual focus and intention behind this work.
Beautiful. Okay, so I want to play with this a little bit because we don't get a chance to speak that often anymore. You are so, fully occupied training people around the world. I live halfway around the world from you. And yet for me, I'm ranting on about breath and the power of it oftentimes with my clients and students. And I remember one of the things I heard you say early on when I was with you many, many years ago, you said, well, this is spiritual healing. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't know, that sounds like woo-woo stuff. I don't know if I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
that. And now, as things have evolved, as I've evolved, I think, well, hallelujah, that's exactly what it is. It makes 100% sense. And I'm curious though, if could you say more about why is breath specifically such a powerful aspect to that?
I can, with my understanding, and I'm not the scientific one. I'm more into the etheric and the, let's say, metaphysics of it all. And first of all, our breath is the life force. We think, many of us Westerners think, the breath comes in with the other elements, goes into the lungs, goes into the bloodstreams, goes into the cells. We breathe it out, we detoxify. So that's one aspect of what happens with our breath. And yet there's another whole thing going on energetically when we breathe. And when we breathe, we are bringing in prana, or life force. And you, as a yogi master, that the Easterners have believed this forever. And so we bring in the life force, which accesses not only our whole physical being, but it accesses our whole energetic body. And so when we do that, we are creating, let's say, a high pure energy that starts to, first of all, resonate with the lower frequencies and transform them, and then ultimately connect us to our highest frequencies, which is that pure light, that pure love, that pure peace. So we're working with that perfection, with that spiritual awareness that this is ultimately what's happening. And yet it's a journey. Like, people don't just breathe one time and like, wow, I'm there, I'm enlightened, I'm pure light. Although I have seen it happen a few times, but it took me 30 years. So, but for most people, it's a journey to go through the physical, how we work on the physical and the mental and emotional. And that creates this opening or pathway to our highest identity or self, which is our spirit. And it's who our true self is.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. That's really nicely said. Thank you. So maybe that's a good transition in a sense then to something we were talking about beforehand. Like, how can we make our conversation today most useful for our audience? Like, how does breath relate to the audience members' everyday life, and how can they take advantage of it? Is there anything you can say around that?
Well, yeah, I'm really passionate about that because it's like how we connect with people and create like the ultimate, this incredible need for people to know more, be more conscious of their breathing, and work with their breath on a daily basis. And because most people, and I know this because I've worked with hundreds of thousands, that before they are consciously trained to breathe effectively, are not using their respiratory system correctly. Most people are only getting around 20 or 25% of the air and oxygen that they could get. And this happens in two ways: respiratory system closure, which accounts for about half of that. And then the other is not consciously breathing, just waiting for the autonomic nervous system to kick in, that next breath to happen, and not choosing to breathe consciously. So our not only is our oxygen levels low, but our energy levels are low. So the first thing we do, as you know, is we look at how a person breathes, and we help open up their respiratory system, which is an art. It doesn't just happen because mainly we close our respiratory system to protect us from old feelings or memories or traumas. So there's a dance and there's a journey in opening the respiratory system. And then once it's open, people feel how good it feels to breathe more, and they are consciously working with their breath and breathing more. And so that's kind of like the first phase that we do, is just help people. Number one, be aware. How are you breathing? How am I breathing? Oh yeah, I'm not using the lower respiratory system, or I'm not breathing into my chest, which is where my lungs are. And then begin to help them open up their breath so that they are now receiving more life force, more oxygen in their system. So this is the beginning step. And so I would like everyone to leave here today with just a little more understanding of how am I breathing and how could I breathe better. But beyond that knowledge is to understand that every breathing pattern correlates with a behavioral or expression pattern in our life. So if we are shut down here, that outpictures in our life as certain expressions and behaviors. And so when we open that area, those behaviors and expressions change as well. So it's about a lot of things happen just on the physical dynamic. That's one thing.
Yeah, and
I don't
along
want
with you, there's so much to it. I mean, to me, it's this great irony because it's so simple, right? And yet also there are all these layers to it. And one of the things that occurs to me, and I was just reminded as you were speaking, like as you mentioned earlier, I love yoga. I've been deep into yoga for many years, and there's all these great stories of these yoga masters that can do these amazing feats and tricks, and certainly we know the obvious ones, and put their foot behind their head or stand on their hands or those kind of things, but also control some of the bodily systems that seem like they shouldn't be controlled. One of the things that continues to astound me about breath is just the simple fact that any person can go their entire life ignoring the breath, never once thinking about it. And of course, it will continue to happen their whole life. Or at any point, any one of us can say, oh, actually, I want to be conscious about that right now. I can direct it. I can use my breath for specific effects, ignore it my whole life, or choose to, I don't know if I want to say the word control, but direct it maybe for certain purposes. To me, that's just an astounding thing. I don't know anything else in the human, like, I don't know how to control my digestion. I know, like, I know it's happening, but I can't turn that one on
Yeah.
consciously. Yeah. Does it make
Yeah.
sense?
It does totally. It's one of the few functions that we have that we can be totally unconscious or conscious of. But you said something that ties into very much what you're doing that I just want to bring it home for our listeners and for you, is that you said, you're the art of vibrant living. And so the people who are unconscious about their breath totally and depend on the autonomic nervous system, they are living with a certain amount of life force. When we become conscious of it and use it, and use is the word, use it as a tool to enhance our life, it gives us more vibrant living. And that's how it ties in. I mean, it's so perfect for what you're doing here, is that there's more vibrancy, there's more energy behind and potential behind everything we do because we have more life force. So we have a certain amount. I call these people here the walking zombies. They're living with a little thin strand of life force and not much awareness, because without the life force, we're not alive or vibrant. I want to bring that home for you. And then when we're consciously using our breath daily with exercises, sessions, and seeing how it can manage our energy, create integration, create coherence, all these things, then we're living that vibrant life, energetically. So I just wanted to bring that home for you, because there's such a connection between your intention, mission, and purpose, and how the breath plays into it.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes 100%, makes total sense. And so that brings to mind for me something that I say often, and I feel a little bit silly when I do. I kind of make it a game when I say it, but like, just to make it obvious for people. And so I'll say it with you, and I'm curious to see what that sparks for you. Like, when I'm speaking to people about breath, I say, okay, everybody knows this already. If you're not breathing, you're dead. If you are breathing, you're alive. Right. And nobody argues with that. Everybody says, okay, I'm with you so far. And I say, okay, well, let's leave that one aside and focus on breathing. We're breathing, and so we're alive. So doesn't it just make sense that the quality of our breath has something to do with the quality of our life? Or if we're breathing a little, maybe we're a little alive. Or if we're breathing really well, then maybe we have an extraordinary life. Like, it seems just so sort of obvious and simple in that way. Does that make sense for you?
Oh, totally. And I think we're on the same track, because I say that you're not alive, and then all this aliveness when you use the breath and work with it and have it be conscious. It's just asking you be conscious about it and learn some things, how it can serve you in so many ways. Like, it's beyond anyone's imagination. When I talk to new clients or a new class, like, they're astounded, number one, what happens to them, say, in a week of breathing, and number two, how they can continue to do the work at home effectively and keep enhancing their life, the quality of their life, their energetic levels, their, like, quotes, aliveness. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, for me, one of the really revolutionary things too, when I first met you and realized, like, this is not the same model that psychotherapy uses, that says, come lay on my sofa every week for the next 20 years. It's like, yeah, it's good to do some study, some work with people that are trained, because it is an art to open up the breath. And it's also a tool that you're empowered to use on your own. And there's not much in the quote medical or healing world, in the traditional or allopathic, that empowers people to do it on their own. So maybe that's a good transition, because if I understood correctly, you would be willing to provide a bit of an experience for the audience. Is that true?
I would. And let me just backtrack with you a minute, because you address the physical. and this is where we began, but I also don't want to skip over the mental and emotional component because it's so tied in with the physical. And when you do the physical, that part happens automatically. So I want to just very briefly just explain what we do on the mental and emotional, or what happens, and how it supports people on that level as well. Because you mentioned, psychology, and it's such an amazing way to reach deeper states of mental and emotional peace and coherence. And so what happens, it's actually based in physics, but what happens when we work with a particular breathing pattern, which I would like to share in a little while, is that we work with a particular breathing pattern and encourage through our knowledge people to breathe in the traditionally closed areas of their respiratory system. And like I said, for most people, it's a third or 2/3 of their respiratory system that isn't functioning. And again, a good reason. So we understand that there's a lot of suppressed material in those areas, and that's why we shut them down. And that's how they're able to stay in the unconscious. So when we start working with someone, we have them go ahead and start breathing. So this starts opening up their respiratory system. But then something else happens in consciousness when when they do that. And this high energy, this pure light energy, this breath life force goes into that area. It starts to come in contact with what I would call the lower vibrational patterns in our energy, our electromagnetic field. And these could be past memories, these could be suppressed feelings, fears, anxieties, anger, grief, anything that we haven't felt fully is still part of our energy field. So the breath will come in at this high frequency, and it will come on a basis of polarity with these lower frequency patterns. And this is part of a physics principle that I've actually run by some physicists. So to like, am I crazy or is this what's happening? And what will happen as these two patterns will come together, the higher frequency, which is the breath, will start to entrain or raise the lower frequency into a higher state. So people, when they're breathing, they may get in touch with a big trauma from their childhood, or someone died, and the sadness, and they start to feel it. As they continue to breathe, they have this opportunity to permanently integrate that pattern into a higher state, which is phenomenal. So it's something that can be done initially with a trained professional, but can be done without a whole lot of preparation. People could do it on themselves with themselves. And so this is amazing. And this is permanent. This isn't just, okay, I'm feeling my sadness, and breathe again, I feel my sadness. It works in layers, but ultimately and eventually that pattern is fully integrated. And that allows us to go into the third level, which we could talk about later if you want, going into the spiritual realms and aspects of self. But there's a barrier between that level of self and our physical world, and that's our subconscious. And if that subconscious is still with a lot of feelings and repressed memories, there's no accessing those higher states. So to know that our work works wonderful on the physical, and if that's all we did, we'd be great. But also we have this other element of really healing on a deep level the mental and emotional aspects of self that we're not even conscious of, that come in usually in our childhood, where we can't even cognitively work with them.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that you clarified that part. And my feeling, my understanding of that mental emotional part is it feels like it's easy for most of us to understand the physical, right? It's kind of obvious. Okay, not breathing dead, breathing alive. But the emotional part, to me, I often think of that as like the juiciest part of the transformational breath experience, because for most people, and if you're worked with hundreds of thousands of people, I think I'm up to tens of thousands now, and I've seen it so many times that people do this kind of breathing, and then they get this emotional integration or access or healing or whatever we want to call it, that again, like you said, that they didn't even know was a factor. They didn't know that it was maybe weighing them down, but then something gets released or integrated or healed, and it's astounding to them. I mean, it's like I've had so many people say that was the most powerful experience I've had my whole life. And it's
Yeah.
like, good golly. I mean, and that happens, like, it's rare that I lead a group session and someone doesn't say that. It's just so astounding. And of course, people are like, and I was just breathing. That was just from breath that happened. Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah. And it's so true because, and that's why I wanted to explain it maybe before we did any breathing together, because it will be strange. Well, I'm just breathing here, and why am I feeling afraid, or why am I so angry or scared? And so it explains, like, this is part of the process. This is, and it's warrior work. Face it. A lot of people would just be happy to keep the unconscious and unconscious, and yet it's going to outpicture in our lives. And that's the main thing, is why would we want to go into the unconscious and integrate these patterns? Because that's what's creating our life experience. And if we don't, if we're not able to do that, and not able to, let's say, clear or integrate at that level, they're going to keep, even though consciously we want this, we deserve it, we visualize it. But if there's energy patterns that are saying something different, they're going to produce different things than what we want.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I say it oftentimes, like, you may not realize that it's affecting you or impacting you, yet it is, but only all the time. Yeah, super powerful. Okay. So great that you helped clarify that so people have a better understanding. And I think of it often this way. I'm curious how this lands for you. Like, for me, before I even help someone start with the breathing, or before we start the breathing part of a workshop, I've got quite a few things to say, because I feel like if people understand here some of what the process is, how it works, why we do it, what the effects are, what the benefits are, then they're likely to get that much more value and power out of the experience. Does that seem true from your experience?
Yes, because the tendency is as human beings, we leave our comfort zone, and then we don't want to do it anymore. So there needs to be preparation, that this is warrior work, that we're going to go into the subconscious, and yet for them to know that if they keep breathing, and that's why we're here as their coach, they keep breathing, they are going to be able to resolve it permanently, versus just have it still there and maybe even activated now more in their life. And also another thing I wanted to add, Daniel, that, as you know, we work with sound in the process as well, because sometimes we get to a state in the breathing sessions where the energy is so intense that it's almost impossible to breathe, that we're maybe overwhelmed emotionally or physically, something going on, something in the cellular trauma where there's a pain. And so we have the gift of working with sound, among other things we've brought into the breath work, but working with clear, pure tones that also support and help the integration. So we're never stuck in a pattern very long. Even it could be extreme emotion or incredible physical or unbelievable memories. It's amazing what comes up for people, as you know, when they breathe, of things that happened to them that they could not face in that moment. They had no other thing enable to survive. They had nothing else they could do but suppress it. So, or repress it. In that case, it would be repress. So, I don't even know what the question was, but it was,
Well, that's great. That's
good to
what you
share.
said is, it's super helpful.
Mm.
So, well, maybe, I don't know, would now be a good time to give the audience a little bit of an experience?
Well, yes, and it would take a little bit of background, because one of the first things that we do is notice which muscles a person is breathing with. And our ideal situation, kind of like the only situation for us, is that we want people to use their diaphragm, the diaphragm diaphragmatic structure, and which I'll explain in a minute, to breathe with, because that is the muscle structure we were given to breathe with, the primary. Sometimes there's secondary muscles involved, and yet the diaphragm is essential for building what I would call an open flowing breath, meaning starting as we breathe in, expansion in the lower abdominal stomach area, and as we continue to breathe, the breath would go all the way up if it was open, and then as we exhale, we relax the diaphragm and the breath goes down. So ideally, when we're breathing openly and freely, it's like a wave. As we inhale, exhale, inhale, and you will see the rising and the falling of the center part of the body to fit in with that flow. And so that's where we would like to begin, even now in this simple exercise, to let people, first of all, identify, am I using my diaphragm? Am I at least using, and it's no shame, no good or bad around it if they're not. It's just that we don't give breathing training per se in life, and so we could have come in and shut down in our belly and never really learned to use it. So there's no better time to start now than now. And so how we could do this, we'll do a little test. I'd like to ask everyone to go ahead and put their hands on their stomach and abdominal area. And then I'm just going to ask you to let's take 4 or 5 breaths through our mouth. All right. So my question is going to be to you, did that area rise and fall when you were breathing? And you could have connected your breath or not, but mostly we want to know, when you inhaled, was there expansion? When you exhaled, was there a falling? This will give you an idea if you're using your diaphragm. And that's where we want to begin. If you are, then bravo, we can go on to the second phase of checking in with your breath. If you're not, then there's a couple things we could share with you to wake up that diaphragm and get it going. And I'm not sure where you are and if you have the flexibility of changing position. The first thing is that I think the most effective thing you could do, bar none, if you weren't using your diaphragm, if there wasn't movement, the best way to open it up, 99% effective, is to lie on your stomach with your arms at your side and your head turned and on a flat surface. And this is going to put pressure on the diaphragm, and it's going to start to activate it. And so when you do your breathing exercises, if you're not able to do that today, just put your hands there and put some pressure on that area, and that will go ahead and support. And then you can see maybe that's enough to get your diaphragm working. Hands on I would say, the midsection of your body, the solar plexus, and then below the navel, so above the navel and below the navel, and put some pressure there if there was no movement. But ideally, if you can, lay on your tummy just for this short exercise, again, with the head turned, arms up, and that pressure is going to go ahead and stimulate the movement of your diaphragm, which is honestly the only way to begin conscious effective breathing, is to engage that diaphragm, to get it going. And to open up that, it means if you're not using your diaphragm, that whole lower part of your body is not getting the life force. It's not getting the air and the respiration that is possible there. And so we tie it in with meanings like that would mean maybe you're not grounded in your body, you're not in touch with your power, you may have low body physical symptoms. These are things that we see when someone's not using their diaphragm and breathing in the lowest parts of their body and belly. So that's number one. So we're going to do some diaphragmatic breathing, one way or the other. If your belly was moving up and down, that's great. The second test I want to do is we're going to do some more breaths, but now I want you to put your hand on your chest, about the heart, a little bit of the heart. And I want you to do some more breaths. And let's see how that feels and what happens there if you feel movement there. Okay, so we're going to still breathe in and out through our mouth, and I'll explain why we do the mouth breathing if you want to know. So we're going to breathe in and out through our mouth, and if you can, connect the breath. Otherwise, just try to breathe a little faster so the breath can show its natural pattern, not anything you trying to force anything. Okay, so open our mouth. All right, I think you could see my chest going up and down, and ideally, to go back historically, that was one part of my respiratory system that wasn't working, that through working with the breath, I was able to open and have incredible opening of my heart, my emotions, my expression. And that was, I think, a key component to this healing in my throat. So if your chest did move, that's great. If it didn't, then this is where we want to bring the breath up a little higher when we do our exercise. And again, if you feel some emotions come up when you're doing it, just keep breathing and know the breath will move that, and relax, and don't get distracted by the energy that's moving when we're breathing. So I think that's all you need to know to do it. This is a simple 5-minute exercise that we'll do together. Daniel, can you play some music? Do you have the ability to place like a little slow to medium music while we do this?
I
We
think
didn't
so.
check
I'll
that
just,
out. All
I think I
right.
can get that going. Let's see how.
Nothing too boom, 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 nothing like that, but kind of medium to slow.
Yeah, I can do that.
All
Give me a
right,
moment.
good.
And while I'm getting that ready, Judith, would you say a word? Because I was thinking earlier as you were describing some around the emotional and mental aspects of it. And what happens for a lot of us where we repress or suppress emotions, but maybe don't even realize it. Something that I have found really fascinating and I think super important about breath is that I think you used the word earlier, integration, right? And there's a part of therapy worlds or pseudo therapy worlds that uses a lot of catharsis type things, which is like, oh, I feel something and I don't like it, and so I'm gonna throw it out of me in some way. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I find that that's not the energetics of breathing, and that's one of the things that I find so powerful about breathing is that it's more. It's not like trying to get rid of it. It's trying to, I don't know, I think of it as accept it, heal it, integrate it, allow it to release rather than forcing, which to me doesn't work anyway. It backfires and produces more of what it's trying to eject. Am I thinking in a correct way around this? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Danielle, in that, by bringing, let's say connecting with these patterns and breathing into them, there's an allowing that happens to be able to be free of it. While you're trying to push it away, that's you're resisting resistance essentially, and it doesn't work. And there's nowhere for it to go. Like our energy in physics, people know our energy is contained and you can't lose it. It's just stays. Energy cannot be lost or released or gotten rid of. So I think an ineffective philosophy to do that. So if you can breathe into it, and part of our process is accepting, breathe into the energy of it, to feel that feeling and continue to breathe. That allows us to change the energy without pushing it away or denying it, or re-repressing it. People can re-repress things very easily as they surface. Whoop, I'm not going there, and then whoop, shut down again.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And to me, it's so refreshing and empowering. And I think representative of just the evolution of the world we live in. It's getting easier. The vibration of the world is increasing. There's more light. Yeah, there's a lot of problems in the world, of course, but it's because we are evolving more. We don't need necessarily so much like confrontative types of therapies. There's more light. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Well, hello. We're living in a dualistic world dimension. So the more light, the more, and I'm finding there seems to be more life challenges going on, and yet we have more light energy, more consciousness to stay strong in that higher reality versus try to struggle with the darkness. And I think that could be a bottom line of transformational breath, rather than focus on the negativity or the repression. We focus on bringing in that high frequency energy through our breath that transforms it into its true state, because all energy has a true state of a higher frequency, but sometimes it shows up in some of our energy centers as a lower frequency. And so we have the ability through breath, and there's amazing things coming out now. We're not the only show in town, but I do find it incredibly effective that we can go ahead and transform it back to the original high frequency state that we are.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, well, I could ask you questions and talk about it all day, but we got an experience. I got music ready. Shall I start
All
playing it
right.
now?
Okay, let me get everybody ready first. So I want you to go ahead and put your hand where you want your breath to go. So if you want to be stronger in the belly, put it there. If you want to open the chest, if both the belly and chest were open for you, then just breathe along with us and see what happens. Or else we're going to work on one area or the other. And Daniel's going to play the music. So we're going to breathe in and out through our mouth, brings the greatest volume of air in and reaches the lowest parts of our respiratory system the most effectively. So we're going to go ahead and begin to breathe in and out through our mouth. Go ahead, Daniel. Breathing in, breathing out. Daniel, the music seems to be cutting out, so I'm not sure if it's what we need.
Cutting out, huh?
Continue to breathe, breathing in, letting go, breathing in, letting go, inhaling, letting go, just like a wave, breathing in, letting go, and just allowing the energy to breath, the breath to go where it needs to go. It's not working very well. So the music's not working, so we can just breathe, focus on our breath. Relaxing in. If you start to feel lightheaded, it's okay. That's more oxygen going to your brain. If you start to feel tingling, that's a good sign. Energy is going to those parts of the body. If you're feeling some feelings, just breathe into them and allow them to surface and move through them with your breath. Good. Stay with it. Relax on your exhale. Just letting everything go. Breathing in your good and letting go. Breathing in your good and letting go. And now I want us to just experiment with sound for a minute. As you're breathing, I want you to take a deep breath and let your breath out and make a clear, pure sound. Ah. Do it with me again. Good. Now just a few more gentle breaths. We're just going to just breathe openly and gently in and out, in, and see if maybe there's a little more expansion in your breath, a little more openness, and we can just let the music go for now. I'm just open to whatever we're feeling. Maybe more openness, maybe more awareness of where we need to breathe more, focus on more. Maybe we're feeling a deep peace and feeling more love in our hearts. I know I like feeling that increased energy in my head, more expansion, more awareness. Now take a couple slow, deep breaths to begin to just bring us back, less than 5 minutes of breathing. And open our eyes and just kind of ground ourselves. So I don't know. Do you have feedback from our groups? Do we have any feedback how that was?
Well, if for anybody that is live, if you would like to make any comments, I'd be happy to take a look at that. We'll see if anything comes in with that. While I apologize for the inept music situation, didn't go quite the way I thought. That was beautiful anyway, though, and I love just giving people an experience, and for the audience, whether you're with us live or watching by rebroadcast, one of the great things is you can go back and play that part again and do it over again, especially if you weren't like if you were driving a car, that wouldn't have been the time, obviously, but you can go back and do it over and over again. And my experience is that every time I use some conscious breathing, I get a different experience, and it's always helpful. And I never necessarily know what I need, yet somehow I trust that spirit and breath gives me what I need.
Yes. And I'd like to just tie in that too, because we call this a spiritual self-healing process, that we work at the level of invocation, and hold a consciousness of spiritual awareness, that we work with invocation every session, every time we breathe, to align with the highest truth and our highest awareness and the highest beings that are available to us. And so that's part of why transformational breath is what we would call a spiritual self-healing process, that we go beyond the mind, go to another level of beyond the mind and emotions, and work from that unlimited place of unlimited potential. So that's, I think, important to know about this work, that our focus and our bottom line is that. And yet there's a journey to get there. We have to open the breath. We need to do that emotional and mental integration. And then we have this incredible opening to the higher realms, the spiritual realms of ourselves, of life. Many people, as you know, Daniel, have mystical experiences. You probably do, and journey into the universe as a result. And we do it safely because we work with our higher self and angelic beings and other things like that. I hope that doesn't sound too weird for people, but that's our journey.
Thank you for saying it. And I'll chime in for a second to say, part of why breathing caught fire for me is my very first experience. I had what Abraham Maslow would call a peak experience. Like, I had a mystical experience that was profoundly healing for me. And while I had some experiences like that before, they had happened randomly or maybe through some kind of substance. And now I found that through breath, I was able to I was able to connect to the divine or the mystical, to an extraordinary state. in a way that was so simple, and yet there was a method to it through breath, and that blew me away. And at that point I was like, I want all I can get of this, because I've never met anything so powerful and connected in that way.
Yes, and it can and will happen the first time, and for some it's a journey, to work through those layers to get to that part. But it's a way of integrating that part of ourself into our physical experience. And for me, that's a new paradigm on earth. Rather than, leave our bodies to go be with God, we can bring that God awareness into form. And I've seen it happen through the breath, and it's very amazing and beautiful. So
nice. Well, we're time is running out quickly here. I want to pop up this nice comment here that Lubna said. Thank you, Judy, for sharing the gift of our breath. So nice to listen to you. Thanks for your comment, Lubna. And as we are finishing up soon, I've got the big final question for you in a moment, Judith. But before that, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or anything that you want to share that's been missing so far?
No, yes, that this is an investment. You could spend 5 minutes, a half hour a day, and it will pay off tenfold as far as the quality of your life, the amazing potential of what conscious breathing can do for you on every level. So I suggest come explore our programs. We have beautiful programs online and in person, all over the world. We've done programs now in 54 countries. So it's quite a dream that's come true from that amazing healing that I received. So just our breath. Yeah, thank you. There's the website. And I wanted to offer a gift, and I didn't plan how it would happen. So if anybody wants a complimentary 5-minute breathing exercise that I would lead you in, if you do info@transformationalbreath.com, they will forward that to me, and we will send you a link, or however my media people want to do it, get it to you. We'll be sure and honor that. And I'm sorry we didn't work that out sooner, but info@transformationalbreath.com. And there's ways to sign on to our online academy and find out about the programs we're doing around the world. And in Hawaii with Daniel.
That's awesome. Thank you, Judith. And yeah, and to me, I couldn't recommend highly enough. And you said it so well. The investment that anyone puts into breathing just pays off multiple. So in the website, for anybody who's listening rather than viewing, it's transformationalbreath.com. And to get access to the free gift that Judith just mentioned, a guided 5-minute session where she guides you, you send an email to info@transformationalbreath.com, all spelled like you would think. And doing a program, a training, whatever you can get into, such a good idea. It'll serve you in so many ways. So all that said, Judith, we're up against the clock here. Could I ask you the final question? All right.
Yes.
So then this question, it's so big, it's impossible to really answer. You've got so much experience and knowledge, yet I will ask you anyway. And that is, from all of your wisdom and experience, if you had one thing to offer, a piece of advice or something to do or not do, what would you say to the listeners in terms of how to create and live a vibrant, thriving life? What's the one thing you would offer?
I would say breathe into your heart, because then you're getting in touch with your true self, and that love that is able to be expressed there will be the ultimate result that you could ever want.
Beautiful. Breathe into your heart. So simple, yet so powerful. And that's really just the amazing thing about the breath. So simple and so powerful. And Judy, you've been so gracious to invest this time with us. I appreciate that. And even more, from your courage and commitment to your own healing back in the 70s, to just tirelessly bringing this work forward to literally thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the world. It's such a big act of generosity and love and service. So thank you for doing all that.
Thank you, Daniel, for all your outreach too. And guess what? It's millions now. Millions of people have experienced transformational breath. So that's how it just grows. It just grows. Amazing. Amazing.
That's phenomenal. Well, that's beautiful. So again, thank you, Judith, and to y'all, our audience, listeners, viewers, thank you so much for being here with us. You being tuned into, interested in vibrant living, making your life more of a masterpiece. It counts. Not only does it make your life better, it makes the world better. So I really, really appreciate you for being here. I love you. I hope that this serves you. I hope you'll tune in with us again soon. And please do continue to make your life a masterpiece. Thanks, y'all. Aloha.
Thank you.
Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.